Chapter 926, You might be the daughter of a rich family. The only thing that was keeping Zai Hanmo going was her hatred towards Zhu King. President Liu was indeed nice to her. It was almost like he was trying to make up for the way he disrespected her. But, she wanted to forget about that night, even though some things couldn't easily be forgotten. Apart from working, Zai Hanmo often passed by superstar media. She knew she'd never receive Lin Qian's forgiveness, but simply seeing her was enough to ease her troubles. While there, she noticed that Li Jin had been dropping Lin Qian off at work a lot more often. Did this mean that Lin Qian was about to get married? Zai Hanmo was right. Because, that day, when Lin Qian arrived at the office, she immediately told Tangning and Long Ji the good news. As soon as Long Ji heard it, a huge grin appeared on her face. It's been a long time since we've had something worth celebrating at Superstar Media. Hurry up and do it. Has everything been decided? Tangning was also happy for Lin Qian. After all, she had met a man that truly treated her well and was willing to give her everything. Yes, Lin Qian nodded. The Li family are really nice to me. I think getting married isn't a bad idea, as long as you're happy. Are the Li family happy for you to continue working? Long Ji still had her uncertainties. Yes, I've already spoken to them about it. They are very supportive, Lin Qian said before she fell into deep thought. However, I've been investigating my background lately. Ha ha, who knows? You might be the daughter of a rich family. Don't worry about it too much. Long Ji had always been this optimistic. So, Tangning and Lin Qian ended up laughing because of her response. President Tang, Miss Luo is here, the secretary said as she knocked on the office door. Tangning nodded and said to Lin Qian, let's go. Your artist has arrived. Lin Qian nodded her head and followed Tangning out of the office. As they reached the meeting room and saw Wu Yingong, they quickly exchanged greetings. This was Lin Qian and Long Ji's first time seeing this woman in real life. From her appearance, she looked like a kind and gentle woman. She had long wavy hair and a beautiful pair of eyes that resembled a phoenix. Unfortunately, there was a long and thin scar that ran down the left side of her face. This was likely the scar that was left by Feng Jing. Tangning, you already know about my situation. After all these years, I've already stopped competing with her. But, that woman is frightening. Do you know what she's been doing lately? She's been getting close to my son. My son's only 22 years old. He's in the prime of his youth, yet he told me that he's in love with a 40-year-old actress. How am I supposed to accept this? Doesn't Feng Jing think her actions are disgusting? She's already stolen everything from me, yet she's trying to steal my son as well. She practically plays with my life like a hobby. What am I to do? I'm completely helpless at the moment. All I can do is return to the entertainment industry and retrieve the motherly admiration that my son feels for that woman. I want to save my family, so I came to look for you. After hearing Luo Yingong's story, everyone fell silent. They never imagined that the story was even more complex than they originally thought. Parents of the world deserved sympathy. Yet Luo Yingong's son was siding with an enemy. No wonder Luo Yingong wanted to make a comeback after disappearing for so long. I know that the world now belongs to the young people. It's practically impossible for someone at my age to make a comeback. But, for the sake of my son, I am willing to do anything. Words probably couldn't explain how frightening Feng Jing was. But, when one thought about how she stole another person's life and was now trying to steal their most loved, it wouldn't be hard to see that she was a despicable person. Tangning remained silent for a few seconds as she scanned Luo Yingong from top to bottom. You can still be saved. Huh? Luo Yingong was in disbelief. Did Tangning actually say that she could be saved? But, if you want things to change, you need to try something new. It won't be easy. I've already gotten to this point and experienced everything I could possibly experience. I'm ready to give my all. Luo Yingong smiled bitterly. What's your plan? As long as you think I stand a chance, then let's do it. I can handle anything. I feel assured with these words. The meeting with Luo Yingong filled Tangning with a million emotions. It turned out, there were so many people in this world that were just like her in the past, working hard for someone else's benefit. But, not everyone fought back like she did. Luo Yingong had endured dozens of years, but she didn't receive the peace she wanted. Even now, She was still being humiliated by Feng Jing. To even target a person's son was proof of how evil this woman was. My eyes have been opened. There's actually women in this world that would look for younger men to please them, Long Ji sighed. Of course, she said this after Luo Yingong had left. How badly must Feng Jing hate Hong Ji for her to even target her son? It might not be related to hatred. She might simply find pleasure in it. Tang Ning replied. What do you plan to do? They were finally discussing the main issue at hand. Tang Ning looked at Lin Qian and said, go look for a fitness teacher and a personal trainer. Hong Ji needs to change the way that her son views her. She also needs to change her public image. She is currently worse than a newcomer because everyone is waiting to treat her as a joke. What do you view her as? Lin Qian asked. I view her as an inspirational and elegant woman that's willing to sacrifice and try anything for her son, Tang Ning explained. Of course, this has the potential of being skewed by the media. So you need to control the timing well. Most importantly, Feng Jing will definitely cause trouble and fight back. This time, we are not making Luo Yingong into an actress again. It's no use, Feng Jing won't lose to that. We need to do something more shocking. This time, it wasn't just Luo Yingong's battle. It was also superstar media's chance to take a big leap forward, because everyone felt that Luo Yingong's chance of making a comeback was too unlikely. All eyes were on them. What PR tactics could Tang Ning produce? Feng Jing thought that Tang Ning would put her up against Luo Yingong, but in reality, this was not the case. Luo Yingong was born into a prestigious background and had been talented since a young age. Meanwhile, Feng Jing simply started off as an insignificant assistant. Even though she had experienced a lot in the industry, some things couldn't be learned on the spot. They required proper training. So, Tang Ning wanted Luo Yingong to play to that advantage. No matter how impressive Feng Jing currently was, she would always mind her family background. This was what Tang Ning wanted to use against her. Chapter 927, I will no longer acknowledge that I know you. Why did Luo Yingong's son dislike her? The psychology behind it was easy to understand. Luo Yingong used to be an impressive actress, but she ended up losing to a mere assistant. Luo Yingong often vented to her son about this, but she didn't expect that it would indirectly tell her son how capable Feng Jing was to steal everything that belonged to her. Most importantly, Luo Yingong used to live a glamorous life, but after her son was born, he did not experience any of her previous glory. So he hated his mother and developed a desire to conquer over Feng Jing. As a result, Luo Yingong's feelings towards Feng Jing were complicated. He admired her, he wanted to conquer her, and he hoped to gain motherly love from her. Either way, his attention was completely focused on Feng Jing. If they wanted to turn the tables and rely on strong tactics, it was practically impossible because it was more of a psychological battle. If they wanted to win, they had to take one step at a time carefully. Lin Qian accepted the challenge because Luo Yingong's matter didn't just involve superstar media, it also involved herself. Ever since parting ways with Zai Hanmo, Tang Ning had been teaching her how to strategize so she could get back on track. But, during this time, she also visited the police station to document her fingerprint. However, it had already been a few days without any news. In reality, the results from her fingerprint had already come out and the police had already contacted Li Jin. But Li Jin did not tell Lin Qian about it. While the two Li elders were joyfully preparing for the couple's wedding, Li Jin decided to keep this secret hidden forever. In the past 20 years, Lin Qian had already suffered a lot. So, in the remaining years, Li Jin simply wanted her to live a happy life. After returning home, Lin Qian had tried asking Li Jin about her fingerprint results. But Li Jin simply replied, I haven't heard anything from the police. The information is probably irretrievable. Lin Qian took a deep breath. Although it felt like a shame, there was nothing she could do. After all, her fingerprint was her only lead. If even the police couldn't do anything, what could she possibly do? Focus on being Mrs. Li. What's past is in the past. Lin Qian nodded her head before she placed her focus on Luo Yingong's matter. Li Jin liked seeing Lin Qian's serious expression. So, the study room was surprisingly harmonious. But, Lin Qian would probably never find out that within Li Jin's safe sat a report that revealed everything about her life. Late at night, Inside a fancy villa, Feng Jing held onto a champagne glass as she sat in the garden admiring the night sky on her own. A moment later, her assistant entered the villa. Apart from delivering a script for her new film, she also arrived with some surprising news. Jingji, my nephew contacted me. Someone recently did a fingerprint test at the police station and the results shocked him so much that he immediately gave me a phone call. According to the results, she appears to be your daughter. You've been avoiding her for so many years, yet she's finally appeared. After hearing this, Feng Jing put down the glass in her hand and looked at her assistant. Are you sure? As you're aware, I've kept contact with the police over the years. Ever since you first told me about this matter, I've been preparing for the possibility that someone may attack you with it. I just never imagined that your daughter was still alive. Feng Jing froze for a moment before she fell into a panic. Have the police already released the results? From what I know, they have. Who is she? Feng Jing was extremely worried about this matter. I've asked my nephew to send the results to my email. Come, have a look. The assistant opened the email on her phone and handed it to Feng Jing. After looking at it, Feng Jing suddenly burst into laughter. How's this possible? How could there be such a coincidence? What coincidence? Have a look at it yourself. Feng Jing handed the phone back to her assistant. A moment later, the assistant's eyes grew big. This is too. The assistant was completely stunned. Since this is the case and she is a part of the entertainment industry, why don't we bring her back to your side so she can help you? Feng Jing shook her head. She wasn't so optimistic. It's true that I abandoned her when she was young. If you were in her position, would you be able to accept it? Feng Jing asked as she massaged her aching head. But, Feng Ji, that won't do. What if she finds out about this and decides to attack you for it? What will you do? Yes, what should I do? Feng Jing contemplated. I guess I'll have to make up a story and put on a pity act. Perhaps things may turn out the way you hoped and we'd be able to pull her over to our side. No, we should strike first. Find a time to arrange a meeting with her for me. The assistant thought long and hard. Since Feng Jing was the only one that knew the truth, then making up a story was indeed the best solution. Don't worry Feng Ji, I'll make arrangements as soon as possible. Lin Qian would have never imagined that her intention to investigate her background for the sake of getting married would end up triggering an even more spectacular story. To help Luo Yingong shake off her previous image, not only did Tangning tell Lin Qian to change her appearance, most importantly, she told her to make Luo Yingong's scar less frightening. Tangning specifically hired a beautician from South Korea to do some work on Luo Yingong's scar. Even if they couldn't remove it entirely, they could at least make it less visible. The Tangning at this time was still unaware of Lin Qian's background because Lin Qian had never mentioned it. So, Tangning did not expect anything that was about to happen. In fact, it was completely out of her control. Before Luo Yingong began her training, Tangning organized for her to meet with her son so they could discuss each other's thoughts. Hearing that his mother wanted to make a comeback, Luo Yingong's son simply looked at her with ridicule. Mom, you're not young anymore. Why are you creating so much stress for yourself? You're just going to embarrass yourself even more. Tangning had instructed Luo Yingong to act indifferent and hide her desire to win her son back even if it killed her inside. You're already 22. I no longer have control over you. If you feel that being with that woman brings you happiness, then go ahead. I thought it over. I have my own life to live. So, do what you want to do. I will no longer get involved. The tall young man looked at Luo Yingong in ridicule. Don't try to break us apart with any tricks. Listen carefully. I need to live my life, so you look after your own concerns and leave me to my own affairs. From today onwards, we are no longer mother and son. Whether I succeed or fail from now on, it will have nothing to do with you. Of course, if I end up returning to the film industry, don't come looking for me, because I will no longer acknowledge that I know you. Chapter 928. No matter how bad things get, you still have us. Don't worry, I won't come looking for you because you will never win against Feng Jing. Faced with the humiliation from her son, Luo Yingong's eyes turned red, but she did not try and hold him back like she used to, because she knew Feng Jing's existence meant that their relationship would only drift further and further apart. Afterwards, Luo Yingong packed her belongings and left the family home as her son watched secretly in surprise. He then returned to Feng Jing and said, "My mom doesn't seem to be joking this time." Of course she's not joking, she's even contacted Tang Ning for help, Feng Jing said as she sat in the living room sipping wine, dressed in a set of satin pajamas. "But, it's no use. Even if she's found Tang Ning, she's still no match against me," Feng Jing said with extreme confidence. After all, she still had a trump card in her hands. Lin Qian never expected that Feng Jing would come looking for her. Assuming that it was because of Luo Yingong, she attended the meeting after speaking to Tang Ning. However, after arriving at the hotel, Feng Jing did not mention Luo Yingong at all. Instead, she analyzed Lin Qian in detail and warmly welcomed her to sit down. Lin Qian wasn't used to being treated this way, so she said, "If there's something you want to say, then say it." "Stop putting on an act." Feng Jing lifted her head and looked at Lin Qian. A moment later, her eyes turned red. Qian, Miss Feng, we're not very familiar with each other." Lin Qian felt disgusted by Feng Jing. Qian, Feng Jing repeated, ignoring Lin Qian's disgust as she grabbed onto her hands and began to cry. "What are you doing?" Lin Qian asked angrily as she pushed her away. "It's Mom's fault for losing you." Feng Jing took a few steps back and suddenly knelt on the floor in agony. "Mom has searched everywhere for you over the years. It wasn't easy, but I finally found you." Lin Qian froze in shock, finally realizing what was happening. She then laughed. "Miss Feng, have you made a mistake?" "How could I make a mistake?" "Didn't you visit the police station recently to do a fingerprint test?" "I've been on the lookout for you, so I often visit the police station." "It was the police that notified me of your results," Feng Jing said with a face full of tears. "If you don't believe me, have a look at this report." Lin Qian was dumbfounded as her mind went blank. She couldn't possibly accept that this thief was her mother. Qian, you are really my daughter." Lin Qian wasn't stupid. Even though she looked at the report, she did not believe Feng Jing's words without any trace of doubt. After all, she wasn't a naive little girl that believed everything she heard. Qian, stop calling me that. "I don't like it," Lin Qian said uncomfortably. "To be honest, even though you've come crying to me, I don't know how I'm supposed to believe you. So, I'm going to look into this matter further before I come to a conclusion." Qian, Mom didn't mean to lose you. You need to forgive me." Lin Qian was not blinded by this so-called reunion, so, she simply replied in a cold tone, "I will know the truth after further investigation." After speaking, Lin Qian stood up and left without even taking a sip from her cup of coffee. And, as soon as Lin Qian left, Feng Jing dried her tears and drank her coffee like normal. It was almost like she didn't know the woman that had just put on a pity act. Of course, Lin Qian's heart wasn't completely unmoved. At least, when she boarded her car, she found her grip tighten around the report that Feng Jing had given her. But, she didn't have time to feel depressed. Even if Feng Jing was actually her mother, she still needed to investigate the truth behind the entire story. After seeing Feng Jing, Lin Qian went to find Tang Ning. In her subconscious, there were only two people that she trusted completely. One was Tang Ning and the other was Li Jin. But, Li Jin was currently completing a mission at the military base and wouldn't be home in a few days. After seeing the report in Lin Qian's hands, Tang Ning furrowed her brows. She did not believe that Feng Jing came to reunite with her daughter because of genuine feelings. Even though Lin Qian was investigating this matter because of her upcoming marriage, everything was too much of a coincidence. She didn't believe that Feng Jing was free of motives. "What do you plan to do now?" Tang Ning asked. Lin Qian looked down and shook her head blankly. "I'm not sure either. I just needed someone to talk to. If Luo Yingong finds out about my relationship with Feng Jing, she might lose trust in me and even resent me. First, we need to find out the truth behind the entire incident. There's a big difference between whether Feng Jing lost you or abandoned you. Apart from that, as long as you keep work strictly professional, I'm sure that Hongji won't feel any resentment towards you. She is different to Feng Jing. By the way, do you also want to know who your father is?" Lin Qian shook her head. She knew that someone like Feng Jing couldn't possibly be involved with a good man. Tang Ning nodded as she patted Lin Qian on the shoulder. "Don't be upset. No matter how bad things get, You still have us. Lin Keon's eyes turned red, but she quickly resisted from crying. Don't worry. A small matter like this won't be able to hurt me. If you can't hold on, then let me know. I'm fine. After speaking, Lin Keon gently hugged Tangning and left Hyatt Regency. A moment later, she returned to the agency to meet with Luo Yingong. Luo Yingong was in the middle of a class. She was trying to regain the skills she once had, in a short period of time. Because of Feng Jing, Lin Keon developed feelings of guilt towards Luo Yingong even though nothing had been proven yet. That night, after Mo Ting returned home, Tangning quickly explained everything that happened that day to him. As soon as Tangning was done, Mo Ting immediately pulled her into his embrace. Lin Keon isn't as weak as you think she is. Feng Jing is merely parading around like a clown. I'm scared. Are you scared that Feng Jing revealed her identity because she wants to use Lin Keon? If your guess is right, then there's no point worrying about it. I'm sure Lin Keon can differentiate between right and wrong. Even if she can't do it herself, she still has us to guide her. Mo Ting comforted. He knew that Tangning had been disregarded by her family from a young age, so she empathized with Lin Keon. Lin Keon had already suffered so much because of the Quan family. Would she actually let her own mother hurt her? If Feng Jing actually dared to do it, Tangning would do everything to make Feng Jing suffer 100 times more than Lin Keon. Soon, Lin Keon returned home. As soon as she stepped in, she found the Li elders discussing the wedding guest list. This made her feel extremely bad, because she didn't actually mind her background but she did mind Feng Jing as a person. Worst of all, she was afraid that a father would appear out of nowhere and embarrass the Li family even more. Chapter 929, Put up a good act. Soon, Feng Jing arranged to meet Lin Keon for the second time. This time, she wanted to tell Lin Keon about her father. Lin Keon wanted to know what game she was trying to play, so she once again showed up to the meeting. But, this time, Feng Jing didn't just invite Lin Keon, she also invited Luo Yingong. As soon as Lin Keon saw the two women sitting inside the VIP room, she wanted to turn around and leave. But, Feng Jing had already seen her, so she quickly called out her name and stopped her. Keon, where are you going? Lin Keon did not expect this. She did not expect Feng Jing to be so ruthless. Feng Jing, aren't you calling my manager's name too affectionately? Luo Yingong questioned. Feng Jing smirked and pulled Lin Keon towards them. She then said, I'm allowed to call Keon in whatever way I want. Hongji mustn't know that Lin Keon is my long-lost daughter. It wasn't easy for me to find her. I never imagined that she'd be your manager. What a coincidence. After hearing Feng Jing's provoking words, Luo Yingong was stunned for a few seconds before she asked Lin Keon angrily, is Feng Jing telling the truth? Feng Jing probably thought it was easy to get Lin Keon on her side, but Lin Keon was like a sharp thorn. Hongji, let me be honest with you, I'm not sure if this woman's words are true because she suddenly appeared in front of me one day crying about reuniting. But, even if she is my mother, I don't think Miss Feng should naturally assume that I'd help her or return to her side. I hate people that steal from others. Since I'm Hongji's manager, I will definitely help her till the end, whether Hongji believes me or not. I've already said what I wanted to say. After speaking, Lin Keon turned to leave, but Feng Jing once again held her back. Keon, I'm your mother, you can't treat me like this. You obviously knew that Hongji would resent me if she found out about this, yet you specifically met both of us at the same time. Your motive is clear. Lin Keon freed herself from Feng Jing's grip. Your methods disgust me, Keon. Feng Jing never imagined that Lin Keon would completely strip her of her pride. So, when Luo Yingong saw it, she couldn't help but clap and cheer. Perfect. You needed to pay for stealing my son. So, now that your daughter is my manager, we're even. Feng Jing held back her anger and said to Luo Yingong in a cold tone, you ugly monster, even the gods can't help you regain your fame. Let's wait and see. Luo Yingong was taken completely by surprise. Lin Keon was actually Feng Jing's daughter. For a short second, she actually thought that Lin Keon was tricking her, but when she thought carefully about the type of person that Lin Keon was and what she had said, she had reason to believe that Lin Keon would never acknowledge Feng Jing as her mother. Drama fell upon them like one wave after another. After returning to the agency, Luo Yingong decided to meet Lin Qian for a chat. That's when she found out that the entire incident was out of Lin Qian's control and Feng Jing had acted shamelessly on her own. Hongji, I hope you can't trust me. Since you're my manager, then I of course trust you. Even if I don't trust you, I will trust Tangning, Luo Yingong reassured. Since this is the situation, then we should always be open with each other. Feng Jing loves to play dirty tricks. I don't want us to be hurt again. Thank you, Hongji, Lin Qian thanked. Luo Yingong shook her head as she smiled at Lin Qian. With you by my side, I'm sure that woman will feel anxious. She'll definitely attempt to drive a wedge between us again. Actually, as someone that's been a mother before, I am certain that you were either abandoned or had gone missing. The public is unaware of this part of her past, so, it must mean that she didn't want people to know of your existence. If she handled the matter in an honest and legal manner, it wouldn't have been kept as such a tight secret. After hearing this, Lin Qian nodded her head. She wasn't forgiving like a saint, nor was she deeply affected by this possibility because she already expected something like this. If a mother lost her child, she would definitely look for them. According to Feng Jing's abilities, if she truly had the intention, she would have found Lin Qian a long time ago. The situation would be very different to what it was now. Hongji, after you're done with your training, go get some rest. Luo Yingong looked at Lin Qian and responded with a gentle smile. But, Luo Yingong had underestimated Feng Jing. Since she was brave enough to expose her relationship with Lin Qian in front of Luo Yingong, she was definitely prepared for the possibility of things going the opposite way. So, the media received some explosive news the next day. The famous actress, Feng Jing, had a daughter in secret, and this daughter was the adoptive daughter of the Quan family, Lin Qian. As soon as this information was released, Feng Jing created quite a commotion as netizens tried to chase her for answers. But, Feng Jing ignored them. She simply tried to give Lin Qian a phone call. However, Lin Qian didn't pick up because this woman meant nothing to her. She was simply worried that the Li elders would have an opinion about her. So, she opened up her heart to Mother Li and explained the entire situation. After hearing what happened, Mother Li felt a little emotional as she pulled Lin Qian into her arms. Silly girl, you must be so hurt, yet you're worried about how we'd feel. To be honest, we really don't care about your background. You're a good child and we've already acknowledged you as our daughter-in-law, so that crazy beach should stop adding to her act. No matter what she does, we will always be on your side. The Li family will shelter you from the storm, don't worry. Lin Qian was truly moved by these words. Thank you, Auntie. We're almost family. There's no need to say thank you. A little while later, Lin Qian received a phone call from Luo Yingong. That woman wants to blame me for the entire incident. I know, Lin Qian replied calmly. Since she's brave enough to do that, she's definitely well prepared. Don't get involved in this matter. Let her add to her act as much as she wants. Okay, as long as you know that I didn't do anything, that's all that matters, Luo Yingong replied. Lin Qian continued to ignore Feng Jing, but the rumors became more and more strange. Seeing that she couldn't drive a wedge between Lin Qian and Luo Yingong, Feng Jing eventually stepped out and admitted that she had a daughter. She even told the public that she had been looking for this daughter for many years. This claim was verified by the police, who confirmed that she had never given up on the search and had remained persistent. As an actress, I hope to keep my private life a secret. I didn't want to create a bad image because of my past, so I decided not to reveal this matter while I asked the police to continue the search over the years. But now I've found her, I can finally step out and take full responsibility. I simply hope that my daughter will forgive me for my clumsiness and for all the pain that she has experienced over the years. Feng Jing put up a good act, but Lin Qian still did not respond. Chapter 930, If worst comes to worst, we'll both go down together. The netizens took a step back and analyzed the situation. Where was this sudden piece of drama headed? Feng Jing was once Luo Yingong's assistant during the time when she had started her own agency due to her fame. After a long time away from the limelight, Luo Yingong suddenly decided to make a comeback and, coincidentally, her manager turned out to be Feng Jing's daughter. But, no one was aware that Feng Jing had ever gotten married. Why was this show becoming more and more exciting? Although the public weren't aware of what Feng Jing had done to Luo Yingong, The industry had always had their speculations not, so now that a show had started, people naturally created a spectacle of it. Feng Jing put on a pity act, not hiding the guilt that she felt towards her daughter. She admitted her faults quickly and naturally managed the PR, making it hard for people to dislike her. After all, even the police were vouching for her. But, no matter how much commotion Feng Jing caused, Lin Qian still did not provide a response. Even when the media chased after her, she still kept her mouth shut. Without any response, Feng Jing practically washed her face with tears all day long. Looking tired and exhausted, she made herself appear as pitiful as possible. She even turned up at Superstar Media. Tang Ning was in the middle of looking through some documents when her secretary notified her that Feng Jing was outside the buildings. As soon as she heard this, she looked at Lin Qian. Lin Qian was focused on taking care of Luo Yingong, so Tang Ning immediately closed up her laptop and walked out to see Feng Jing. Tang Ning, hurry and tell Qian to come see me. Tang Ning lowered her head and laughed. She then replied, Feng Ji, your acting is no use against Superstar Media. No matter how real your emotions looks, we will simply treat you as a joke. Tang Ning, Lin Qian is my daughter. I just want my daughter back. You were afraid that Lin Qian and Hong Ji would expose that you had a daughter in secret, so you scripted your own act instead. Tang Ning sat down on the sofa casually. You knew that Lin Qian's appearance meant that your dark past would eventually be uncovered, so you decided to take control of the situation before someone else did. Don't talk to me about wanting your daughter back. Lin Qian will never leave with you. HMMPH, Tang Ning, what right do you have to involve yourself with mine and Qian's matter? Feng Jing scoffed. If this was somewhere else, then I may not have the right. But, when it comes to Superstar Media, I definitely do. After all, you are currently on my turf. I will come again. Feng Jing realized that she wouldn't be able to see Lin Qian this time, so, she turned and left. A little while later, Lin Qian stepped out of the training room. She remained silent as she stared at the empty entrance. She's bound to come hassle you at least once every few days. You need to prepare yourself for it, Tang Ning said. Putting on a pity act will aid in the advancement of her career and may push your relationship with Luo Yingong into a crisis. Lin Qian sighed helplessly. She felt a little upset but had nowhere to release her frustration. Tang Ning looked at Lin Qian and the frustration on her face. It wasn't hard to imagine how Feng Jing would end up pressuring her in the future. Ningji, help me think of an idea. Tang Ning had been waiting for Lin Qian to ask for help, but she was worried that she wasn't certain of her decision. Are you sure? You know that I don't hold back when dealing with people. Of course I'm sure, Lin Qian replied. Fine. Wait for a good show then. Tang Ning had long treated Lin Qian like her own sister, so, there was no way that she'd sit around and watch her being tormented. Afterwards, wherever Lin Qian went, she'd naturally be surrounded by reporters. However, Lin Qian did not avoid them. Instead, she stared straight into one of the cameras and said, I'm just a manager. I don't want the public to place too much focus on my family background, especially since I'm still investigating this matter. Lin Qian, does that mean you have doubts about Feng Jing being your mother? I have plenty of doubts in my mind, because in my memory, I was abandoned as a child. After speaking, Lin Qian turned and left, but, her response had left the media with too many thoughts. Was she trying to say that Feng Jing abandoned her? After seeing Lin Qian's interview, Feng Jing flipped the table in front of her in anger. This daughter of hers didn't know what was good for her. If Lin Qian insisted on pressuring her like this, she would have no choice but to use more extreme methods. Afterwards, Feng Jing asked her assistant to contact Lin Qian, claiming that she had something important about her father to discuss with her. Lin Qian didn't want to see her, but Feng Jing threatened to tell Li Jin's parents about it if she didn't show up. Qian, you don't want them to back out of the marriage before your wedding day, right? In the end, Lin Qian had no choice but to agree to the meeting. But, before they met, she first notified Tang Ning about it. Tell me where you will be meeting and I'll make arrangements. Tang Ning replied. I know you're stressed out, but trust me, okay? Lin Qian nodded her head as she felt her burdens disappear. During this entire time, Li Jin had yet to return from the military base. This was perhaps the biggest downside of marrying a man in the military. Soon, Lin Qian arrived at the meeting place. As soon as Feng Jing saw her, she once again clasped onto her and began to cry. Qian, I know you can't forgive me, but I still hope for you to call me a mom at least once. Lin Qian felt that Feng Jing had become addicted to acting. She could still put on an act without an audience. So, Lin Qian pulled her arm away and asked, "What did you want to tell me about my father?" "I'm your mother." "Is this how you treat me?" As expected, Feng Jing immediately wiped away her tears and spoke calmly. "Let's stop talking about useless things." Qian, I'm your mother. You won't be able to free yourself from me for the rest of your life." Feng Jing laughed before she said in a cold tone, "I need you to deal with Luo Yingong for me. Otherwise, I'll tell Lu Jin's parents that your father was a rapist. I'm sure the Li family won't allow the daughter of a criminal to join their family." Lin Qian was a little surprised as she held back her emotions. "If you reveal this matter, it won't be of any benefit to you either. If worst comes to worst, we'll both go down together. I'll simply be seen as a victim, but you'll lose your love and have no place to belong. You're crazy." Lin Qian concluded. "It wasn't easy for me to get to this point, yet the slat, Luo Yingong, wants to snatch everything back. Do you think I'll let her get her way? Of course not. So, give me an answer, will you deal with her for me, or not?" Lin Qian looked at Feng Jing and thought about how Tangning was just next door. Only then, did she calm down a little? Answer me. Chapter 931, Silly Qian, I won't do it, Lin Qian said confidently after a moment of silence. She knew that if she compromised this time, she would have to compromise next time. Feng Jing stared at Lin Qian in disbelief as she asked furiously, "Aren't you afraid that the Li family will find out? If the Li family refuse to accept me, then Li Jin and I must not be fated to be together. I will never back down for you, so you can tell the Li family whatever you want. I will not be threatened by you." Feng Jing never imagined that Lin Qian would be so tough. Even after being threatened in such a way, she was not affected. What was her heart made of? "Fine, you said it. Don't blame me for being heartless." Lin Qian glared at Feng Jing coldly before she turned around and left. She was firm without a trace of hesitation. Feng Jing sat in her chair in disappointment. Why was Lin Qian so disobedient? Since that was the case, there was no reason for her to be considerate of their relationship. In reality, Lin Qian did not leave the hotel. She simply stepped into the room next door and pounced into Tangning's arms as soon as she saw her. Lin Qian did not cry, but Tangning knew that Lin Qian's heart was probably broken into pieces. Tangning did not try to comfort Lin Qian straight away. Only after a little while, did she say to Lin Qian, "I trust in Li Jin's love for you, so I think you should also trust in it too. Don't worry, I would never bow down to the pressures of evil, especially not someone like Feng Jing." Tangning knew that Lin Qian had been strong, so even though she was pressured by Feng Jing, she did not buckle. "I will definitely avenge you for this." Lin Qian nodded her head as she left with Tangning. At this time, she received a phone call from Li Jin, but Lin Qian did not pick it up. Soon, Lin Qian returned to the Li family home. She saw Li Jin, but she did not say a word. Only after quite some time in silence did she finally pounce into his arms and punch his chest. "What took you so long to come back?" The first thing that Li Jin took note of as he was returning from his mission was the entertainment news. So, on the way home, he had already heard that Feng Jing had created a web of lies. Thinking about all that Lin Qian must have suffered, he pulled her tightly into his arms. Qian, I'm sorry." Lin Qian couldn't hold back her tears as she began to cry. Afraid that his parents would hear her sobs and misunderstand them, Li Jin quickly carried Lin Qian into his room. Qian, Lin Qian cried for some time before she regained her composure and said, "Did you already know about my background?" "Even Feng Jing knew about it, so you must have already known." Li Jin took a deep breath and nodded his head as he hugged Lin Qian. "I didn't want you to know about it." Lin Qian laughed and shook her head. "Unfortunately, someone couldn't let me live in peace." "Did you know, Li Jin? Feng Jing even tried to threaten me today. She said that if I don't help her, she would tell your parents about my father." "What's wrong with your father?" Li Jin asked as he tried to remain calm. In actual fact, his heart was tearing apart. Lin Qian was his precious gem, yet someone kept trying to hurt her. She said that I was the result of her getting raped. After hearing this, Li Jin held Lin Qian tightly in his arms. Lucky you didn't trust her words. Huh? Lin Qian looked at Li Jin questioningly. Li Jin released her from his embrace and went to fetch the documents from his study room. I asked a friend to investigate Feng Jing and found that she had been dating a young heir before becoming Luo Yingong's assistant. But, because of her indecent behavior, the heir ended up dumping her. You were born a little after that, so there's no doubt that your father is that heir. Silly Qian. Lucky you didn't fall for her lies. Lin Qian felt like a huge load had been lifted off her shoulders as she looked at the information. If you want to reunite with your father, there's no need. Lin Qian refused. I think things are fine as they are. I don't want to be abandoned again. Lin Qian's worries weren't unreasonable. If the man had such a good background, then he was bound to be married with children by now. So, if she was to pop up out of nowhere and claim to be his daughter, she would be ruining a happy family. Lin Qian didn't think it was necessary. Li Jin retrieved the documents and placed them to the side. He then moved in close to Lin Qian and once again pulled her into his arms. If that woman wants to destroy herself by looking for my parents, then go ahead. You need to trust that my parents aren't easy to fool. Lin Qian leaned into Li Jin's embrace and finally nodded her head. I trust you and I trust Auntie and Uncle. Li Jin cupped Lin Qian's cheeks in his hands and tried to kiss away her tears. However, as their kiss became more and more passionate, the couple almost lost control of themselves. Luckily, Li Jin controlled himself before they took things any further and gently patted Lin Qian on the head as he placed her down on the bed. Have a nap. I'll call you when dinner is ready. Okay. Lin Qian was tired. Truly tired. After coaxing Lin Qian to sleep, Li Jin headed downstairs to discuss Feng Jing's matter with his parents. After hearing the entire story, Li Jin's parents were furious, especially Mother Li, who slammed her hands on the table. How could there be such a monster in this world? She even tried to use her own daughter. Mom, Qian has suffered a lot. Don't worry, if this bitch comes looking for me, I'll put on a good act for her, so she learns that she can't just provoke and bully anyone as she pleases. If she doesn't want Qian, I'll have her. Mother Li hummed loudly. After hearing this, Li Jin relaxed. As for you, you keep going on missions and leaving Qian to suffer on her own with no one to comfort her. Mom, when I'm not around, you can look after Qian. Huff, if you weren't my son and you weren't working for the country, I would have beaten you to death. Mother Li complained. She was obviously surprised that her son could find someone as good as Lin Qian. She was much too good for him. Li Jin didn't mind suffering on his own. As long as his mother treated Lin Qian well, a man could handle a bit of complaining. Then I'll just wait to watch a good show. Lin Qian was unaware of all this, but the Li family were determined to get justice for their daughter-in-law. At the same time, Tang Ning wasn't about to sit idly by either. How capable did Feng Jing think she was? Soon, she would find out what it meant to offend someone that shouldn't be offended. There was no doubt that Feng Jing acted quickly and confidently. On the surface, she invited the Li elders to discuss Li Jin and Lin Qian's marriage because she wanted to be a good mother. But, everyone knew that she was actually there to cause trouble. Chapter 932, Help Cancel the Wedding. Mother Li pretended not to know about Lin Qian's matter and pretended to fall into Feng Jing's trap. The two parties agreed to meet as soon as possible so they could give Lin Qian and Li Jin an answer. As Lin Qian left the house in the morning, Mother Li notified her of her upcoming meeting with Feng Jing so she could be prepared. Qian, although you don't acknowledge Feng Jing as your mother, she's invited your uncle and I to a meeting. Since she made the offer, then it's only normal for us to meet with her. We will be seeing her at 7 p.m. at the hotel nearby. Come by after you finish work, don't be late. Auntie, Lin Qian cried. Leave everything to me. You don't need to do anything. Lin Qian nodded her head. Although she trusted Mother Li, she did not trust Feng Jing at all. In order to achieve her motive, how many tricks did this woman have up her sleeves? Lin Qian was worried, but she didn't know what else she could do. So, she went to Superstar Media as normal and supervised Luo Yingong as she did her training. While working, she was meticulous in organizing Luo Yingong's training regime. She did this so Luo Yingong could one day return to the position that belonged to her. But, during her break time, she would stand by the window in a daze. Feng Jing must have thought of multiple ways to torment you. After hearing Luo Yingong's words, Lin Qian turned around and gave a bitter smile. No one understands her better than I do, Luo Yingong said as she wiped her sweat. To achieve her motives, she would sacrifice anything. It doesn't matter even if you're her daughter. If you don't get rid of her, you will continue to suffer for the rest of your life. Lin Qian did not say a word. She was worried about the dinner later that night. If Feng Jing could actually tell the Li elders that she had been raped, then Lin Qian would have to well and truly give up on her. Tang Ning could tell that Lin Qian's mind was elsewhere, so she put in her best efforts to dig up secrets about Feng Jing. She had a feeling that Feng Jing had a lot more skeletons hiding in her closet. Lin Qian told Tang Ning about the meeting later that night and Tang Ning laughed in response. Are you afraid of something? Afraid that you would get hurt? Or afraid that the Li family would abandon you? Lin Qian shook her head. I'm afraid that I'll lose control one day and kill her. Tang Ning placed her hand on Lin Qian's shoulder and shook her head. When dealing with someone despicable, you will need to beat them at their own game. There's bound to be a spectacular show tonight. Perhaps, Lin Qian smiled. Later that evening, she left work at 6 p.m. and arrived at the hotel at 7. As she stared at the entrance, she did not want to walk in. She didn't want to acknowledge Feng Jing as her mother. But, after much hesitation, she finally entered. As soon as she stepped in, Mother Li approached and pulled her to the side. Andy, why are you still down here? I had to wait for you, of course, Mother Li replied. Come, hook your arm around mine. Lin Qian did as told. In comparison to Feng Jing, Mother Li and Lin Qian looked more like mother and daughter. As the two women arrived at the meeting spot, they saw Feng Jing and her assistant waiting impatiently for them. Mother Li had deliberately arrived half an hour late with Lin Qian. I'm sorry that we're late. Mother Li sat down with Lin Qian. As soon as Feng Jing saw this, she tried to drag Lin Qian to her side, but Mother Li quickly stopped her. No need. It's fine for Qian to sit next to me. I'm relieved to see that Mrs. Li treats my daughter as her own. Feng Jing acted. I was afraid that Qian would suffer after getting married. From the looks of it, she's very respectful towards you. I guess, I'm the only one she hates. Just as they were chatting, Li Jin and Father Li also arrived. They were both military men, so they didn't have much to say. Li Jin placed a seat next to Lin Qian and his long arms naturally wrapped around her body, pulling her into his area of influence as he sent Feng Jing a warning with his eyes. Seeing this, Feng Jing smiled. My future son-in-law doesn't seem to like me. Qian has never acknowledged you as her mother, Li Jin replied. But she can't deny it either. Feng Jing shrugged. I know that the Li family is a big socialite family that needs to care about their pride. So, there's something I want to clarify with all of you in case you claim that Qian tricked you into marrying her in the future. It seems Miss Feng has something important to tell us, Mother Li said as she looked meaningfully at Feng Jing. Yes, I do. It's concerning a sad past. To be honest, I don't actually know who Qian's father is. I did many bad things when I was young and reckless. Qian's birth was one of them. If big news results from this, I won't take responsibility. Miss Feng is sure straightforward. Aren't you afraid of ruining your daughter's marriage? Mother Li asked as she raised an eyebrow. If we don't clarify things now, won't things be worse when it gets exposed later? Besides, Qian was brought up by the Quan family and once dated her brother. I'm sure she's already told you about that, right? Feng Jing said in a provoking manner. Lin Qian glared coldly at Feng Jing. She hasn't mentioned that, Mother Li replied. Feng Jing glanced at Lin Qian and then turned back to look at Mother Li and Father Li. She must be too embarrassed to speak about it. Her mother was bullied while her adoptive family treated her with bad intent. If I was her, I wouldn't talk about it either. Miss Feng, did you know that these words could completely destroy our image of Lin Qian? The Li family is strict, so it's impossible for us to tolerate despicable people, not to mention those that ignore seniority and do what they want, Mother Li said angrily. Exactly. That's why I don't understand why you'd let Qian be your daughter-in-law. She seems like a very dishonest person. Feng Jing continued to fan the fire. Mother Li turned and looked at her husband before she looked at Li Jin and nodded her head. Indeed, Lin Qian lowered her head, suddenly feeling anxious. Her mother was betraying her, leaving her speechless. Although Lin Keon is my daughter, we haven't really interacted with each other, so I did an investigation on her. Her relationship with the Kwon family's son wasn't normal and she works in the entertainment industry. I have a feeling she may cheat on your son one day. In summary, I don't think Lin Keon should marry your son. It's too humiliating for the Lee family. I admit that we're not good enough for you. To play along, Mother Lee nodded her head. Your words are reasonable. After all, it's quite worrying to have a mother in the entertainment industry. That's why I'm here today to help Keon cancel her wedding. Chapter 933, The smell of trash is making me sick. As Feng Jing looked at Mother Lee's expression, her lips secretly curved upwards. She believed that no parent would knowingly push their child into a fire pit. Now that they knew how Lin Keon was really like, would they still allow their son to marry her? As she looked at Lin Keon's tormented expression, Feng Jing felt a sense of success. She wanted to tell her that this was the result of not listening to her mother, that she was about to lose everything. Meanwhile, the Li family stared at Feng Jing without a word. Feng Jing simply thought that they were so angry that they were rendered speechless. And, she was right, they were angry. But, the reason for their anger was very different to what Feng Jing thought. Keon, now that things have gotten to this point, I think you should come home with me, Feng Jing said as she stood up. However, Mother Lee pressed down on Lin Keon's thighs to keep her seated and glared coldly at Feng Jing. Miss Feng, you've sure opened my eyes today. Even a tiger wouldn't eat its own child, yet you've well and truly betrayed your daughter. Feng Jing turned around and looked at Mother Lee, not quite understanding her standpoint. Mother Lee laughed and replayed the voice recording she made on her phone of the conversation they just had. You're unbelievably disgusting. After speaking, Mother Lee stood up and nudged Lin Keon towards Li Jin. Stand to the side, I can't express myself to the fullest with you around. As soon as Li Jin heard this, he immediately led Lin Keon and Father Lee over to the sofa in the rest area, leaving Mother Lee to deal with Feng Jing on her own. Firstly, you said you're here to cancel Keon's wedding on her behalf, but I would like to ask what right you have to do that, Miss Feng. Don't say it's because you're blood related. I'll take Lin Keon overseas tomorrow and get her genetics completely altered. You say you're her mother? We refuse to acknowledge it. It was bad enough that you were dumped by a rich heir and couldn't hold on to your own man. I mean, at least you snatched away someone else's crown of best actress and didn't lose too badly. But I can't understand why you would go around telling people that you were raped. Is that something to be proud of? When these words left your mouth, didn't you feel ashamed? I really need to bow down to you. Why don't the organizers of the Ftian Awards give you an award for being the most shameless? By the way, when I talked about seniority, I wasn't referring to Keon. I was talking about you, the multi-talented best actress, the cradle snatcher that stole someone's son to warm her bed. You are much too ruthless. Lastly, you are right. You are not good enough for the Lee family. Someone cheap like you shouldn't come looking for me a second time. Otherwise, the recording in my hands will become a joke to others. Mother Lee released her anger like a firecracker, humiliating Feng Jing until her face turned red. Even when she admitted to being shameless, she still felt embarrassed to hear these words. But Mother Lee wasn't done yet, as she directly walked up to her and peered down at her, showing off the benefits of her height. If you don't want Keon, I'll have her. I don't want to hear you badmouth her again. She's here to be my daughter-in-law. If someone dares to ruin her image and spread false rumors, I'll show them my abilities as a government official's wife. If you're smart, you will leave as far as possible. If I find out about you threatening Lin Keon again, I will reveal everything about your past to the public. After speaking, Mother Lee directly pushed Feng Jing away. What a piece of trash. You're only making my hands dirty. Afterwards, Mother Lee said to the three sitting on the side, let's go. The smell of trash is making me sick. Father Lee glanced at Li Jin and Lin Keon, and the three of them stood up from the sofa. Mother Lee pushed away Feng Jing and went to grab Lin Keon. The two women looked exactly like mother and daughter, completely unaffected by Feng Jing's attempts to drive them apart. Feng Jing was humiliated. On top of that, Mother Lee even got a recording of her. As she watched the family leave, she was so angry that she almost tore the table in front of her apart. How dare you trick me? You just wait and see what I can do. After the four people boarded the car, Lin Qian's tears began to pour out. For some reason, her heart hurt. As soon as Li Jin saw this, he immediately helped her dry her tears. Things were going well. "Why are you suddenly crying?" "I don't feel like I'm worth it," Lin Qian sobbed. "Dear child, don't overthink things. I've already experienced everything over the years. Do you really think that I can't beat a piece of trash?" "Don't worry, your Andy isn't easy to bully," Mother Li comforted. "My mother used to be a part of the Girl Scouts. So, relax and let her protect you. Otherwise, she is going to be very bored." Lin Qian was originally crying, but when she heard these words, she couldn't help but laugh. "Thank you for protecting me." She would always remember how good the Li family treated her. At the same time, she wasn't going to hold back against Feng Jing. More importantly, everything that happened today made her suddenly understand one thing: there were some things that she had to end on her own. Otherwise, there would be no end to Feng Jing because she was too shameless. This meeting allowed Lin Qian to understand how the Li family protected her and made her determined to help Luo Yingong even more. After hearing the way that Mother Li tore Feng Jing apart, Tang Ning almost clapped and cheered in excitement. This was the kind of power and courage that she wanted to see. "Ningji, I think it's time for Feng Jing to pay for what she's done." Tang Ning looked at Lin Qian with a piercing glare. "Let's slowly make it so she can no longer be redeemed." As Tang Ning said this, she had already laid out the path for Luo Yingong. Of course, this went hand in hand with destroying Feng Jing because Luo Yingong's success would mean Feng Jing's failure. "Have you planned everything out already?" Tang Ning waved at Lin Qian and began to explain her plan. After hearing what Tang Ning had to say, Lin Qian nodded her head. The reason why she was convinced by Tang Ning and was willing to work by her side was because she was extremely detailed in everything she did and had a lot of foresight. It was hard not believe in her. "I understand." After 45 days of intense training, Tang Ning arranged for Luo Yingong to show up at gyms, bookstores, golf courses, tennis courts and high-class skincare clinics. And every time she appeared, she would naturally attract the attention of the public. Because the changes she went through and the healthy lifestyle she led was inspiring. Before signing with Superstar Media, Luo Yingong was just a bitter old woman. In fact, due to the test of time, she had already become an old haggard housewife. She was nothing like an actress. However, after signing with Superstar Media, she escaped her previous constraints, left her inherent life and started a new lifestyle. She strived to live a healthy lifestyle, attended plenty of high-class events and practically lived her life like it was some kind of art form. Seeing this, others couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Even if she stopped being an actress, Luo Yingong could still become an artist because of her previous talent. Chapter 934, Don't Go Easy on Your Enemies. Actually, the most surprising thing about Luo Yingong was the fact that she was talented in a lot of handicrafts. After her husband died, her son was extremely rebellious, so she developed the habit of using craft as a form of stress relief. Under the therapeutic effect of art, the items she created were particularly pleasing to the eye. Because of this, Tang Ning specifically found Luo Yingong a new home and decorated it with items that she had created over the years. As soon as people saw photos of her new home, she immediately won over the hearts of many young women. The public didn't quite understand which path Tang Ning was leading her down. Why did she always do the unexpected? To make Luo Yingong famous, she didn't help her find a film to act in. Instead, she helped her live a comfortable lifestyle. As a result, Luo Yingong was freed from her image as a bitter old woman. From her clothes alone, her transformation was surprising. In the past, due to her lifestyle, she had already accepted her fate as an average shabby housewife. But now, she was finally living for herself again. She even pulled out all her savings and spoiled herself the way that her stylist suggested. So, the current Luo Yingong either appeared in long flowy goddess-like dresses, or well-fitted traditional kapows. Although her 40-year-old face could not be changed, her vibe was calm and elegant. One had to admit that this new Luo Yingong was quite an inspiration. After all, not everyone could leave behind their bitter lives and start afresh. Yet, Luo Yingong used her actions to prove that a 40-year-old woman could still live the life that she wanted. As a result, the public couldn't find anyone in the industry to compare her to. Even Feng Jing was on a whole different level, because, Luo Yingong practically lived her life like she was in the heavens. Soon, news of Luo Yingong's new lifestyle spread throughout the internet. Multiple photos of her appeared online, in the gym, playing golf or working on her crafts. Even though she had a scar on her face, it did not affect her beauty. In fact, the scar made her appear unique and special. But, Tang Ning's ultimate move was yet to come. Because of Luo Yingong's artistic talent, Tang Ning introduced her to the director of Saint's Jewelry and quickly arranged for them to meet in person. As soon as the director saw Luo Yingong's work, he was extremely interested by her talent. In fact, he invited her to take part in the design of their new season's jewelry collection and asked her to be their spokesperson. Luo Yingong was overjoyed by this offer. She couldn't believe that someone would work with her even though her face was disfigured. Was this real? Was she really appearing in commercials? The scar on her face was the thing that made her feel most inferior. But, Tang Ning abolished her worries with one simple reply. There's no need to worry. The makeup artist will create a beautiful pattern on your face that complements the shape of your scar. President Tang's suggestion is great. I can't wait to work together. As she secured her first contract, Luo Yingong almost cried tears of joy. She couldn't believe that she'd successfully returned to the entertainment industry. Tang Ning, is this real? I feel like I'm in a dream. Tang Ning smiled and handed her a tissue. There's no doubt that you are talented. Superstar media helped you make changes so your image would be different to the public. We knew that forcing people to accept change wouldn't work, but seeing a 40-year-old woman sacrifice everything to pick herself back up is something that young people respect and admire. That's why the first step of our plan ran so smoothly. As for the people at Saint's Jewelry, I must admit that we've negotiated certain conditions with them, but it is of mutual benefit. After hearing Tang Ning's explanation, Luo Yingong didn't know what to say. You truly know how to read people and understand exactly what they want. You're amazing. Tang Ning shook her head and stood up as she said to Luo Yingong, the first battle went well, but the second battle will involve Feng Jing, so the level of difficulty is going to increase. I trust in you, Luo Yingong replied. I trust in all your arrangements. No, the person you should trust is Lin Qian. People simply see her running around for you, but behind the scenes, she's also done a lot of preparations and research, Tang Ning replied. I may execute a lot of the plans, but Lin Qian came up with a lot of the ideas. Plus, she will never side with Feng Jing. Luo Yingong held onto her contract and nodded as she looked at Lin Qian in the distance. I know, I've noticed everything she's done for me. It's good that you understand. Lin Qian previously worked with an ungrateful person, so I simply hope that you can appreciate what she has done for you. Don't worry, I know how to differentiate good and bad, Luo Yingong replied firmly. She previously told me what Feng Jing has done to her. I'm not going to give Feng Jing the chance to hurt her again. Protection was a mutual thing. Now that Luo Yingong was given a chance, she naturally wouldn't forget the efforts that Lin Qian had put in. At this time, Feng Jing simply thought that Tang Ning was getting Luo Yingong to brush off a bit of fame from the edge of the entertainment industry. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so quiet for 2 months. After all, did they really think that Luo Yingong could make a comeback with her lousy crafts and workouts? But, she had no idea that Luo Yingong's comeback had nothing to do with her. Because she wasn't worthy of comparison. Luo Yingong was simply challenging herself. Comparing herself to Feng Jing would be a devaluing thing to do. This had always been Tang Ning's way of managing people. Their path to stardom never involved setting enemies as targets because she hoped for her artists to discover their own strengths. If they focused on fighting with their enemies all the time, then this would not be possible. But, this didn't mean that they wouldn't get their revenge. Because, either way, they would still use their enemies as stepping stones whenever they could. This was the case for Xinglan, Luo Xing and Xianmo. So, Luo Yingong was also the same. Feng Jing hasn't realized how dangerous of a threat you are, so it's the best time for us to strike. By the time she realizes, things would already be too late. Tang Ning had already paved the path. Perhaps due to long hours at work, Tang Ning was getting a bit tired from standing. So, Luo Yingong quickly supported her and said, sit down and get some rest. Tang Ning shook her head and smiled as she held onto her hip. It's nothing. The brat in my stomach is simply misbehaving. You. As Tang Ning was dressed in loose-fitting clothes, Luo Yingong had no idea that she was pregnant. Why are you still working so hard when you're pregnant? Did President Mo allow this? Shush, don't let him know about this, Tang Ning quickly instructed. However, her words had already been overheard by a person that had just arrived in the office. Chapter 935, I will always wait for you. I heard that, Mo Ting said from behind the two women. Tang Ning was a little surprised as she turned around to find Mo Ting looking at her with reasonable concern. I'm just experiencing normal symptoms of pregnancy. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. Tang Ning looked at her husband helplessly, but she wasn't annoyed by his suggestion. She knew that if Mo Ting didn't receive results from a checkup, he wouldn't be able to relax. Luo Yingong looked at the couple. Just a moment ago, Tang Ning was obviously a smart and capable woman in power. But, in front of Mo Ting, she suddenly appeared weak and in need of protection. In that case, Hongji, we're going to get going first. Yes, hurry and go. Luo Yingong nodded before she re-immersed herself in her training. Even though Tang Ning had already laid out a path for her, she couldn't slack off. She knew that if she wanted to survive in the industry for a long time, she needed to show everyone things that would amaze them. Tang Ning was a little unhappy. It was already late at night, yet she was at the hospital getting a checkup. Whilst there, the couple unexpectedly came across Zhu King. However, Zhu King did not see them. Judging by the way his shoulders are hunched up, it appears his injuries aren't light. Mo Ting did not reply as he gestured for Tang Ning to look straight ahead. Following Mo Ting's gaze, Tang Ning spotted Zai Hanmo walking towards them dressed in a little black suit and a coat. Tang Ning thought that Zai Hanmo and Zhu King were still involved with each other. But, Zai Hanmo looked at Tang Ning and greeted, long time no see. Now that Tang Ning thought about it, it had almost been 2 months since they last saw each other. It was indeed a long time. You, and Zhu King, we no longer have anything to do with each other. I'm simply following to see how long he has to live. As you guys are aware, the station manager's son hired someone to beat him up. I think this is the only way to decrease the guilt I feel towards Lin Qian, Zai Hanmo explained. I've noticed superstar media's movements lately and heard about Lin Qian's situation. I hope she can get through her difficulties. I'm very regretful. After hearing this, Tang Ning did not soften and forgive Zai Hanmo straight away. After all, the person she owed the most was still Lin Qian. I won't bother you then. After speaking, Zai Hanmo turned around and left. She knew that even if Tang Ning stopped hating her, it didn't mean that she'd forgive her. So, she could only help Lin Qian and superstar media do some simple, insignificant things in secret. If she was smart enough, she would use President Liu's influence to climb back up. Let's go. Mo Ting never had anything to say about traitors, not even a word. Besides, their main priority was currently Luo Yingong and the Ant Queen. Luo Yingong had just won her first battle and her results were within the public's expectations. So, there was nothing that Feng Jing could do. Even if she wanted to use her fans to slander Luo Yingong, the two of them weren't even on the same playing field. How was she to expect her fans to do anything when they weren't competitors and she had no viable reason? This was the wisdom of Tang Ning. She had many ways of bringing value to her artists. Luo Yingong wasn't pigeonholed to acting. This was because Tang Ning understood one thing, no matter what a person wanted to do, if they didn't have the fame to back them up, then they had no right to choose. On the other hand, once they became famous, everything they chose to do would run smoothly. So, Feng Jing had no choice but to watch as Luo Yingong rose from the ashes. Feng Jing was a thief to begin with. So, apart from Luo Yingong's disfigured face, she couldn't find any other flaws to use against her, making it much too easy for Luo Yingong to bite back. But, the most frightening thing was, if Feng Jing decided to make a move, Tang Ning was ready to strike back at any time. Lin Qian couldn't wait for that to happen as she anticipated Feng Jing's demise. Meanwhile, after Feng Jing's attempt to cancel Lin Qian's wedding, the Li family decided to speed up their preparations instead. So, it didn't take long before Mother Li made an appointment for Li Jin and Lin Qian to go try some wedding outfits. But, even as Lin Qian arrived at the bridal shop, everything felt so surreal. It seemed it would take a while before she'd get into the right mind frame. Seeing that her mind wasn't in the right place, Li Jin immediately asked, "You don't like this shop? We can go to another one." Lin Keon shook her head. I wasn't prepared for this. Our wedding has already been approved anyway, Li Jin said as he wrapped his arms around Lin Keon. If you don't want to do this, we can go home. But, Li Jin did not say a word as he took Lin Keon straight home. There were paparazzi following us, so let's reschedule. Lin Keon nodded. But, you may have to wait 10 days. I need to return to the base for a mission at 5 a.m. tomorrow. I'll wait for you, Lin Keon replied gently. But, there were some things that she had to tell him. Li Jin, I'm sorry. I'm not made to be a housewife. I'm not like other women. I can't just stay at home and wait all day for my husband to come home. Nor do I have interest in spending time on planning a wedding. I think, you don't need to explain yourself. If you don't want to do it, then my parents can do it. How could Li Jin not understand? In Lin Keon's heart, a ceremony meant nothing. She wanted something that was everlasting. No matter how much thought she put into a wedding and no matter how big the turn-up, it couldn't compare to Li Jin simply spending a few extra days at home with her. Lin Keon nodded her head thankfully, but she spent the rest of the night sitting in bed in a daze. Although she was living with Li Jin was barely at home. And even when he was home, they each slept on their separate sides of the bed, making sure to never cross the line. But, tonight, Lin Keon's gaze was tense as she stared at the closed bathroom door. A moment later, she stripped off her nightgown and rushed into the bathroom. As soon as Li Jin saw this, he looked away. Keon, go out. Lin Keon pressed up against Li Jin's body and hugged him as she said, I won't regret this. Under the running water of the shower, Li Jin tried to resist, but Lin Keon took the initiative and moved in even closer. Eventually, Li Jin began to lose control and the couple soon found themselves entangled on the soft bed. Are you sure that this is what you want? Li Jin resisted as he spoke in a dull and low voice that contained a trace of passion. Lin Keon hooked her arms around Li Jin's neck and nodded her head. I'm extremely sure. As soon as Li Jin received Lin Keon's response, he slowly lowered his body on top of her. A passionate fire lit up as the bodies twisted and turned. Amongst the gentle intermittent kisses, low moans of pleasure filled the air, sounds that made people blush and their hearts race. That night, Lin Keon slept peacefully in Li Jin's arms until she was awoken at 5 a.m. as he got up to leave. Are you leaving now? Li Jin turned around, placed a kiss on Lin Keon's lips. There's still a while until the sun rises. It's early, so keep sleeping. After you wake up, have a warm shower. Stay safe. As a soon-to-be military wife, all Lin Keon could say was, I will always wait for you. Chapter 936, brought trouble upon herself. Soon, it was time for the annual Ftian Awards again. The ceremony was scheduled for a few days' time. As one of the favorites, Feng Jing put on a good daughter-searching pity act, but it did not improve her chances at winning an award. After all, when it came to popularity and fame, she couldn't possibly beat Tang Ning. But, even if she received nothing, as a nominee, she was still expected to attend the ceremony. When it came to this, she was nothing like Tang Ning. She was too afraid to act recklessly. Meanwhile, the public bet that Tang Ning wouldn't show up at the ceremony. After all, she had already confirmed that she wouldn't act again. Yet, Hairui registered survivor for multiple awards and it ended up receiving quite a few nominations. Because of this, Mo Ting contacted Lin Keon in private and left her with some instructions. President Mo, what's the matter? Lin Keon asked curiously. Logically speaking, Mo Ting had plenty of capable people around him. No matter the problem, there would be no reason for him to contact her. So, why did he call her today? Mo Ting put down the pen in his hand and lifted his head to look at Lin Keon. As the Ant Queen was more than halfway completed, Mo Ting could manage his time in a way where he could return to Hairui for business matters. As you know, Tang Ning's not likely to attend this year's Ftian Awards. But, you are still her assistant. So, I need you to go on stage and accept the award on her behalf. It only makes sense. Me? Lin Keon was a little uncomfortable with Mo Ting's request. I thought you'd like that, Mo Ting said with an extra layer of meaning. Don't forget, Feng Jing is also amongst the nominees. Lin Keon suddenly understood Mo Ting's intention. Previously, Feng Jing tried to use her to put on a pity act but she ignored her. This time, Feng Jing was hopeful for a Ftian award. If her daughter was to take the award away from her on behalf of someone else, it would not be a good feeling. Thank you, President Mo. I do like that idea. After being with Tangning for a while, she was bound to learn a bit of black belliness. But, Mo Ting's arrangement showed that he was even more frightening. Good. The Ftian Award was a top nationally acclaimed award. If Tangning publicly ignored it, it would leave her open to criticism. So, as Tangning's manager and the CEO of Hyrule, Mo Ting naturally had to make both parties happy. Tangning didn't want to attend the ceremony, so she naturally didn't want her subordinates to attend on her behalf either. But, if Lin Qian attended, the intention would be very different. At the same time, Tangning could use her pregnancy as an excuse for her absence. Afterwards, Mo Ting shared his idea with Tangning, and as expected, Tangning did not reject it. You're so smart. You knew that I wouldn't disagree to Lin Qian going. In fact, you knew I'd be extremely open to that idea. Are you satisfied? Mo Ting hugged Tangning as he placed his palms against her stomach. In which aspect? Tangning winked. Mo Ting's gaze darkened. It was too late for Tangning to run away as Mo Ting lifted her in his arms and headed into the bedroom. The risky stage is over. It's time you make up for it. Tangning realized she may have brought trouble upon herself. Meanwhile, Feng Jing watched helplessly as Luo Yingong was revived. In the end, all she could do was encourage Luo Yingong's son to badmouth his mother. She promised that if he managed to make his mother give up, then she would consider marrying him. As a result, this obsessed young man actually went to look for his mother at her new home. Because pictures of the home were posted online, it wasn't hard to track her down. Unfortunately, Luo Yingong's attitude towards her son had now turned very cold because of Tangning's previous instructions. Mom, I already told you the last time we met that we are no longer mother and son. You take your path and I'll take mine, Luo Yingong responded. Just think of it as helping me. I must admit that you are quite popular at the moment, but compared to Feng Jing, you are still miles apart. Help your son out. She's agreed to marry me if you stop causing trouble, the tall young man said as he snooped around. Every now and then, he would damage one of his mother's handmade creations. Luo Yingong looked at her son, but she did not reply. After a short pause, she directly called for the security guards. There's someone causing trouble here, please send the security over. As soon as her son saw this, he immediately glared at her with hatred. You gave birth to me. How could you treat me like this? So, you remember that I gave birth to you, yet you still choose to be with my enemy. Luo Yingong rebutted. Don't waste your time here anymore. You and Feng Jing have nothing to do with me. Show me a bit of respect before I reveal your embarrassing actions to the world. Otherwise, there will be no place for you in Beijing. The tall young man turned pale. He never expected Luo Yingong to be so tough. He thought she did everything for the sake of winning him back, but, as it seemed, she truly did it for herself. All of a sudden, his mind went blank. Soon, the security guards arrived. Luo Yingong immediately pointed to her son and said, next time you see this man, please don't let him in. Yes, Miss Luo, the security guards replied as they carried the young man out. Also, get him to pay for these damages before he leaves, Luo Yingong said before she returned to her room without taking a single glance at her son. Tangning had told her not to be soft around her son and to not give him any eye contact. If their eyes met, her true emotions would be easily exposed and her efforts would go to waste. As expected, Luo Yingong's son was angry, but he now saw his mother in a new light. At least, in his heart, the mother that tolerated everything had now disappeared. Afterwards, Luo Yingong told Lin Qian about the incident, but, this made Lin Qian feel even more guilty towards her. Hongji, don't worry, I will get revenge for you very soon. Luo Yingong smiled and shook her head. I didn't tell you this because I wanted you to make up for it. I told you because I know you are also a victim. I simply wanted you to know what disgusting tricks she's been getting up to. Don't worry, her days are limited. As a result, Lin Qian felt that her attendance at the Ftian Awards was even more important. She was representing Tangning, the legendary Tangning. Not only was she setting a good example for Luo Sheng, she was also teaching Feng Jing a lesson and helping Luo Yingong get revenge. More importantly, she was drawing a fine line between herself and Feng Jing. Chapter 938, I bet that woman is going mad. Soon came the climax of the ceremony, the Best Actor, Actress Award. This time, because Tang Ning wasn't around, the remaining 4 nominees actually felt like they stood a chance. Especially Feng Jing. The host introduced the guest presenter as Lin Qian turned to look at Feng Jing. Lin Qian noticed that her hands were clenched tightly together. From the looks of it, she was extremely anxious. However, Lin Qian peacefully turned around and sneered. Soon, samples of the nominees' works appeared on the big screen. When footage of Tang Ning in Survivor started playing, everyone erupted in a loud applause. Because everyone understood that even if Tang Ning was no longer acting, her creations still lasted forever and no one would be able to replace her. It was clear to see that a survivor was impressive and Tang Ning's character was full of life. So, even though the spotlight alternated between the nominees, the winner of the award was eventually the absent Tang Ning. As soon as her photo appeared on the big screen, everyone screamed excitedly before the guest presenter asked for the recipient to come to the stage. Everyone was confused. Was Tang Ning present at the ceremony? But when Lin Qian stood up from her seat, everyone immediately understood what was happening. She had sent her assistant to represent her. How reckless to not appear at such an important event. Feng Jing watched as Lin Qian approached the stage to accept the award she wanted on behalf of someone else. Lin Qian knew that Feng Jing would be upset, but this was exactly what she wanted. Of course, as a mere representative, Lin Qian wasn't there to replace Tang Ning. She simply took the trophy from the host, walked over to the microphone and bowed before she explained, "I am Tang Ning's assistant and I am here to receive this award on behalf of Tang Ning. The reason she is absent today is because she is currently expecting and it is a little inconvenient for her to attend." That's right, she's pregnant. Tang Ning announced a while ago that she'd be retreating from acting indefinitely, but she is still very thankful that the committee has given her this award. At the moment, she has no intention to return to acting, but she is thankful for everyone's support and concern. Lastly, I would like to borrow this stage to express a few thoughts of my own. Initially, I never considered myself as someone within the inner circles of the industry, but a recent piece of news has pulled me into the spotlight and messed up my peaceful life. I am referring to news about my relationship with Miss Feng Jing. Since she's also present here today, I would like to take the opportunity to clarify everything. We have nothing to do with each other. Whether we are blood related or come from the same strand of genetics, in my heart, I am an orphan and will always be an orphan. Besides, I am simply someone that works behind the scenes. I have no intention to create hype nor debut myself as an artist. I am a part of Superstar Media and Hairu and will forever follow Tang Ning. So, I hope that all the rumors can now come to an end. Thank you. Lin Qian's words were clearly telling everyone that she would never acknowledge her mother-daughter relationship with Feng Jing. If she had simply said these words to Feng Jing one-on-one, she wouldn't have taken it to heart. But the fact that Lin Qian announced it in front of everyone meant that there was no chance that she would return to her side. So, Feng Jing was furious. Not only had Lin Qian taken away the award that she wanted, she even announced in front of everyone that she wouldn't acknowledge her as her mother. This humiliation felt like 1,000 arrows to the heart. After speaking, Lin Qian held onto the trophy and stepped off the stage, leaving everyone else in an air of awkwardness. After all, Feng Jing was right there. Did Lin Qian just slap her own mother in the face? However, there were also a lot of people that understood Lin Qian. After all, plenty of people knew the disgusting things that Feng Jing had done to get to where she was today, so as a part of Superstar Media, it was only normal for Lin Qian to not acknowledge her because the people at Superstar Media had strong moral principles. Actually, everyone has the right to make their own decisions as long as they are willing to take the responsibility. So, we would like to wish Miss Lin all the best, the host summarized before he continued to present the next award. But, this meant nothing to Lin Qian and Feng Jing anymore. After returning to her seat, Luo Sheng tilted his head and said, "You were really cool on stage just a moment ago." After speaking, Luo Sheng raised a thumb at her. "I bet that woman is going mad." Lin Qian turned her head slightly and looked into the near distance. She was extremely pleased with the current situation because this was exactly what she wanted. She didn't want Feng Jing to feel good. In the end, The ultimate climax of the ceremony turned out to be Lin Keon's appearance on the stage on behalf of Tang Ning. Because her seemingly simple words contained too much meaning. At least, it could be concluded that Lin Keon and Feng Jing's relationship was full of drama. After 2 whole hours, the ceremony finally came to an end. Of course, the cast and crew of Survivor were the biggest winners, going home with Best Actress, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay and many other big awards. As for Tang Ning, her award this time meant that she held onto her position from last year. This was proof of her capabilities. There was no doubt about it. Afterwards, Luo Xing and Lin Keon left the venue together. However, they were stopped by Feng Jing halfway. "Miss Lin, don't you think your actions tonight were a bit harsh?" Feng Jing asked as she glanced the trophy in Lin Keon's hands. "Even if you don't acknowledge me, I still gave birth to you. You can't get rid of the fact that we are blood related, so did you have to be so heartless?" After hearing Feng Jing's emotional words, Lin Keon remained calm and looked at Luo Xing. "Let's go." Feng Jing grabbed onto her hand to stop her, but Luo Xing quickly pushed her away. "Show some respect and keep your hands off of her. You have no right to lay a hand on anyone at Superstar Media." Feng Jing regained her footing and tried to maintain her image. "Young man, control your temper." Lin Keon and Luo Xing completely ignored her as they turned and left like she didn't exist. Only Feng Jing knew how badly Lin Keon's words on stage had hurt her. After all, the public were bound to speculate the reason behind Lin Keon's determination to not acknowledge her mother. If Feng Jing was actually as pitiful as she tried to make herself out to be, then Lin Keon couldn't possibly hate her to this extent. "Jingji, let's leave first and think of another plan at home," Feng Jing's manager suggested. "Superstar Media is making things difficult for me." Chapter 939, He Doesn't Know My Measurements. After the Ftian Awards was over, Lin Keon's wedding date was officially set. Afraid that another problem would pop up if they delayed it any longer, Mother Lee set the date for 3 weeks' time. She sincerely supported the way that Lin Keon treated Feng Jing. Considering the way that she drew a fine line with Feng Jing on national television, it was clear to see that she'd never forgive and acknowledge her. After being notified of the date, Lin Keon simply had one question: "I haven't confirmed if Li Jin will be home that day." "Silly girl, of course I spoke to Jin before I made this arrangement. When the time comes, just focus on being a beautiful bride." "But, we haven't even selected our outfits yet." After hearing this, Mother Lee laughed and held onto Lin Keon's hands. "Jinner has already arranged for someone to make your outfit. He asked a weapons engineer from the military base to design it for you from scratch and he personally took part in the design process. But, he doesn't know my measurements." At this point, Mother Lee scanned her eyes across Lin Keon's body and chuckled. "Which part of your body do you think he's not familiar with?" Lin Keon's face turned red. Keon, we can't possibly understand the pain that you have gone through, so, this wedding is my biggest form of support." After hearing this, Lin Keon wrapped her arms around Mother Lee. "Auntie, thank you. Thank you to both you and Uncle for treating me like your own daughter and being so nice to me. You will be my daughter-in-law soon. So, protecting you on behalf of Jinner is the only thing we can do." After she was done talking, Mother Lee stroked Lin Keon's back comfortingly and sighed. This child was indeed kind-hearted and strong. Lin Keon leaned into Mother Lee's arms as though she was in Li Jin's arms. At that moment, she reminded herself to stay strong no matter what problems she faced. Lin Keon quickly notified Tang Ning of her wedding arrangements so she could get some time off work. More importantly, Tang Ning was pregnant and Long Ji was managing Luo Sheng, so she had to check who was to take care of Luo Yingyong while she wasn't around. "Don't worry, go ahead and get married. Also, take the opportunity to enjoy your honeymoon. I will make arrangements for Hongji," Tang Ning assured before she handed a document to Lin Keon. "You have no family, so Superstar Media is your family. We can't let you marry empty-handed." Lin Keon opened up the documents questioningly and realized that it was an agreement for the transfer of Superstar Media's shares. "Ningji, this gift is too expensive. You will forever be a part of Superstar Media." With this document, You will be working for Superstar Media for the rest of your life. I actually think I'm the biggest benefactor in all of this. Take it." Lin Keon held on to the agreement and nodded her head. She knew that there was no point being corny in front of Tang Ning. "I will keep this gratitude in my heart forever," Lin Keon said as she pointed to her heart as though she was making an oath. Tang Ning shook her head, gesturing that it wasn't necessary. After all, the two of them were already like family, and she was simply treating her the way that family should. Soon, Saint's Jewelry officially announced their collaboration with Luo Yingong to the public and confirmed that she'd be their new spokesperson. As soon as this news was released, everyone was shocked. No one imagined that Luo Yingong, who was striving to lead a positive lifestyle, would secure an endorsement so quickly, let alone become the spokesperson for the infamous Saint's Jewelry. Originally, this was a collaboration that people had no reason to believe in, but Tang Ning was prepared. She knew that Luo Yingong was good at handicrafts and deliberately showcased them to the public, so now that the announcement was made, everyone was actually very accepting of it. They all felt that Luo Yingong was well suited to the idea of originality and creativity. In particular, when Saint's Jewelry decided to place Luo Yingong's sketches on their website, everyone was certain that she suited the role of spokesperson. They felt that the way she created her new elegant image was similar to the way that Saint's Jewelry progressed over time. Luo Yingong was in disbelief. How was this possible? Every single comment left under Saint's Jewelry's announcement were words of anticipation. No one insulted her or attacked her. Luo Yingong thought back on the training that Tang Ning arranged for her and the path that she was instructed to take and discovered that every single step was carefully planned by Tang Ning. Everything had its purpose because Tang Ning never did pointless things. At this moment, Luo Yingong finally understood the meaning of powerful. Luo Yingong couldn't believe that she secured such a top-grade endorsement. Only after the official announcement from Saint's Jewelry did she finally feel that everything was real. More importantly, this step that she took was in no way crossing paths with Feng Jing. Feng Jing had no reason to scheme against someone that was completely unrelated to her. Soon thereafter, Tang Ning also secured an important interview for her. To prevent anything unexpected from happening, Tang Ning allowed for the reporter to hold the interview inside Superstar Media's office. The public were curious about Superstar Media, so they were naturally interested in Luo Yingong's interview. Meanwhile, Feng Jing saw everything that was happening, but there was nothing she could do because she couldn't find a single flaw related to Luo Yingong. After all, she was dealing with the flawless Tang Ning. What should I do? Think of something. Do you expect me to sit here and watch as that BTCH becomes more and more famous? As she watched Feng Jing throw a tantrum, Feng Jing's manager approached and tried to comfort her. Even if she succeeds in making a comeback, she's nothing compared to you. You don't need to worry about her. How can I possibly not worry? What if she becomes more famous than me someday? Am I supposed to let her step all over me? No, I can't let this happen. But, what can we possibly do? Her manager sighed helplessly. Feng Jing lowered her head and thought for a few seconds before she replied, "There's nothing I can do. All I have is that bitch's son." "Are you saying?" Feng Jing's gaze turned piercingly sharp. So far in her battle with Tang Ning, all she had been doing was retreating. She was already left with no choice. So, she pulled her manager over and said, "I have some instructions for you. Immediately find someone to handle it." The manager quickly nodded her head. "Yes, I know what to do." Feng Jing refused to believe that Luo Yingong could completely disregard her son. She simply spoke in a carefree manner because she wanted to act tough, right? So, they would have to see if she could hold on to the act. At this time, Luo Yingong was looking through the details of her interview at the office when she suddenly received a phone call from her son. "Mom, save me." Chapter 940, definitely Feng Jing's trap. As soon as Luo Yingong heard this phone call, she jumped out of her seat anxiously and immediately asked for her son's location. The young man mumbled an address and hung up the phone. Luo Yingong quickly looked up the address and discovered that her son was at a famous nightclub. It was easy to be tricked by others at a place where the good and bad mixed. With this thought, Luo Yingong immediately headed for the door. But, she was quickly stopped by Tang Ning. "Hongji, what happened? Why are you in such a rush?" "Tang Ning, I don't have time to explain things to you. I'm going to pop out really quickly." "Wait, Tang Ning said as she grabbed onto Luo Yingong. Hongji, you are currently at a critical point in your comeback. I'm sure you know that Feng Jing may play tricks on you at any time. Just give me a quick explanation about what's going on. It won't take up much of your time. After hearing Tang Ning's words, Luo Yingong suddenly calmed down and held onto Tang Ning's hands. I just received a phone call from my son. He is currently at a sound of night. Tang Ning immediately instructed her secretary to look up the name, and her secretary quickly returned with an answer. President Tang, that is the name of a famous nightclub in Beijing. My son is calling for help. If your son is calling for help, there's no point showing up on your own. Besides, Hongji, have you thought of the consequences of going there? Whether or not your son is actually there, your reputation is bound to be destroyed, especially if Feng Jing's abandoned your son. What do you think the rumors would say? After hearing this, Luo Yingong froze. Tang Ning was right. Feng Jing, everything could well be Feng Jing's trap. Don't be nervous. I'll get my secretary to contact the police and tell them to handle this matter. Luo Yingong nodded her head. At this point, she was pretty much certain that Feng Jing planted this trap. Luo Yingong slowly calmed down. However, this incident allowed Tang Ning to see that Luo Yingong's son was still the most important thing to her. No matter how many promises she made and how badly she wanted to move forward, Feng Jing simply threw in a small test and Luo Yingong immediately lost control. It seemed, helping her win back her son was something they had to do soon. Soon, the police notified them that Luo Yingong's son was fine and that he was simply drunk and talking nonsense. After asking him a few questions, they left him to continue drinking. Luo Yingong sighed. She was a little frightened by what could have happened. If Feng Jing got her way and actually lured her to the nightclub, what would have happened? With the same thought, Tang Ning suddenly turned around and said to her secretary, go to the nightclub right now and find a reliable bartender to take the phone off Luo Yingong's son and give Feng Jing a phone call. Tell him to warn that Hongji's son is in trouble and tell her to hurry over and pick him up. Otherwise, the photos in his phone might get leaked. I understand, President Tang. If this was the game that Feng Jing wanted to play, then fine. Don't be anxious. As soon as Feng Jing arrives, we will take photos of her. We won't expose them. I will have another use for them. Yes, the secretary quickly left the office. Meanwhile, Luo Yingong had no idea what Tang Ning had planned. She simply needed to know that her son was safe. So, she sat back down and returned to work. Tang Ning looked at Luo Yingong and suddenly felt that, as a mother, she was very pitiful. She had been bullied by Feng Jing for so many years, yet, she had no way of retaliating. Worst of all, Feng Jing had her hands on the sharpest weapon and could pierce it straight through her heart at any time. So, for Luo Yingong to truly be free from Feng Jing, it was necessary to strip her of her weapon. Feng Jing had no idea that Tang Ning had shuffled the cards, nor did she have any idea that Tang Ning decided to play along. So, when she received a phone call from the bartender, she initially had no intention of turning up at the nightclub. But, when the bartender mentioned that the idiot had photos of them on his phone, that was a different story. If the photos were to be exposed, her reputation and image would be completely destroyed. It wasn't unreasonable for the bartender to ask for some money to keep his mouth shut. Feng Jing could accept it. However, she had one condition: she had to go pick him up herself. After all, the nightclub was a busy and complex place. She didn't trust other people and her manager was currently busy discussing a job. Soon, Feng Jing arrived at the nightclub as promised. After putting on a careful disguise, it was hard for people to recognize her. Originally, her plan was to lure Luo Yingong here and slander her. Who would have thought that she'd be lured here instead and be forced to make an exchange? After she picked up Luo Yingong's son, Feng Jing suddenly felt like something wasn't right, especially because of the smile on the bartender's face. She knew that something was obviously wrong. So, Feng Jing immediately rushed out of the nightclub with the young man. If she had known that he'd cause so much trouble, she wouldn't have asked people to make him drunk. Afterwards, Tang Ning's secretary returned to Superstar Media with photos and evidence. President Tang, everything ran smoothly. Feng Jing was so worried about her photos that she didn't have time to suspect anything. Even if she realizes now, it's already too late. Tang Ning looked at the photos that her secretary took. Although Feng Jing wrapped herself up tightly, they still managed to get a close-up shot of her. In particular, they got a clear shot of her leaving the nightclub with Hong Ji's son. With this, Feng Jing will have no choice but to hand the young man back over. Send a couple of photos to Feng Jing. Okay, the secretary was smart and understood what was going on, so she quickly did as told. Feng Jing would have never imagined, after scheming against others her entire life, she'd end up the victim of someone else's scheme so easily. When it came to strategizing, she wasn't even 1/10 as good as Tang Ning. It's just, Tang Ning would never use her schemes against the innocent. She believed and stuck by the idea of giving an eye for an eye. She never initiated attacks, but she wasn't afraid of them either. Soon, Feng Jing received Tang Ning's a gift. After opening the envelope, she looked at the photos in shock. Who was it? Who took these photos? The first person she could think of was Luo Yingong. Although Luo Yingong wasn't smart, she now had Tang Ning by her side, who in Beijing didn't know how scary Tang Ning was. So, she immediately made a phone call to Luo Yingong. Slat, are you disregarding your son just so you can get back at me? Luo Yingong looked at her phone confusedly and continued to listen. Speak. Be straightforward and tell me what you want. Luo Yingong didn't understand a word that Feng Jing was saying, but she could roughly guess what she meant. So, she hung up the phone and went to look for Tang Ning. After telling Tang Ning about the phone call she received, Tang Ning let out a laugh. Hong Ji, control yourself. Feng Jing is about to lose the most important trump card in her hand.
Hit the like, thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for listening.